heritage, embracing ecumenicalism and Catholicism, and now this secret alliance in darkness between America and the papacy. They are coming together, having secret information and having intelligence. And this is exactly what we find in the Time magazine article, that there was secret intelligence taking place between these two powers. Only President Ronald Reagan and Pope John Paul II were present in the Vatican Library on Monday, June the 7th, 1982. It was the first time the two had met, and they talked for 50 minutes. In that meeting, Reagan and Pope agreed to undertake a clandestine campaign to hasten the dissolution of the Communist Empire. Declares Richard Allen, Reagan's first national security advisor, this was one of the great secret alliances of all time. Reagan came in with very simple and strongly held views, says Admiral Bobby Inman, former deputy director of the CIA. It is a valid point of view that he saw the collapse of communism coming, and he pushed it hard. During the first half of 1982, a 5-part strategy emerged that was aimed at bringing about the collapse of the Soviet economy. The US defense build-up already underway aimed at making it too costly for the Soviets to compete militarily with the US. Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative, Star Wars, became a centerpiece of the strategy. 2. Covert operations aimed at encouraging reform movements in Hungary, Czechoslovakia and Poland. 3. Financial aid to Warsaw Pact nations collaborated to their willingness to protect human rights and undertake political and free market reforms. 4. Economic isolation of the Soviet Union and the withholding of Western and Japanese technology from Moscow. The administration focused on denying the USSR what it had hoped will be its principal source of hard currency in the 21st century. Profits from a transcontinental pipeline to supply natural gas to Western Europe. And 5. Increased use of Radio Liberty, Voice of America and Radio Free Europe to transmit administration's messages to the people of Eastern Europe. Like all great unlucky leaders, the Pope and President exploited the forces of history to their own ends. Time magazine. And here we see Mikhail Gorbachev with the Pope. Summarizing, and at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots and with horsemen, and with many ships, and he shall enter into the countries, and shall overflow and pass over. Or, in other words, in 1798, atheism, France, inflicted a deadly wound on the papacy. Berthier arrested the Pope and confiscated lands and took power away. The papacy will use military and economic strength to swiftly enter into the countries of atheism. The papacy, with the military and economic power USA, entered the Soviet Union and brought down communism. Communism transferred from France to Russia, then USSR was formed, and with the help, military strength of America, the communism within USSR was broken. It's also interesting that a book by Malachi Martin, Keys of His Blood, talks about a three-way power, and he wrote that I think in 1982. The three-way power was between who? Gorbachev and the USSR, Reagan and America, and the Pope himself. And he predicted that there can only be one superpower in place. Daniel 11:41. He shall enter also into the glorious land, and many countries is a supplied word there, shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. What does it mean, enter also? It's a repeat of a previous action, i.e. to conquer. In verse 40 there was a conquering, so we have another conquering taking place in verse 41. In Judges chapter 18 verse 9, and they said, arise that we may go up against them, for we have seen the land, and behold, it is a very good. And are ye still? Be not slothful to go and to enter to possess the land, the glorious land. Jeremiah 3:18-19. In those days the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel, and they shall come together out of the land of the north to the land that I have given for an inheritance unto your fathers. But I said, how shall I put thee among the children, and give thee a pleasant land, a goodly heritage of the hosts of nations? Canaan was like an asylum. It was a place for the refugees. God brought his chosen people out of the land of Egypt. He rescued them from their servile state, that he might bring them to a good land, a land which in his providence he had prepared for them as a refuge from their enemies. He would bring them to himself and encircle them in his everlasting arms, and in return for his goodness and mercy they were to exalt his name and make it glorious in the earth. Prophets and Kings, page 16. America also was designated and designed by God as an asylum for his people. The Lord has done more for the United States than for any other country upon which the sun shines. Here he provided an asylum for his people, where they could worship him according to the dictates of conscience. Here Christianity has progressed in its purity. The life-giving doctrine of the one mediator between God and man has been freely taught. God designed that this country should ever remain free for all people to worship him in accordance with the dictates of conscience. He designed that its civil institutions in their expansive productions should represent the freedom of gospel privileges. Maranatha 193. The glorious land, brethren, is America. The unrivaled mercies and blessings of God have been showered upon our nation. It has been a land of liberty and the glory of the whole earth. Many were driven across the ocean to America, and here laid the foundations of civil and religious liberty, which have been the bulwark and glory of this country. Great Controversy, page 252. America is the favored land. When the land which the Lord provided as an asylum for his people, that they might worship him according to the dictates of their own consciences, the land over which for long years the shield of omnipotence has been spread, the land which God has favoured by making it the depository of the pure religion of Christ, when that land shall through its legislators abjure the principles of Protestantism and give countenance to Romish apostasy in tampering with God's law, it is then that the final work of the man of sin will be revealed. When does the papacy conquer the USA? The papacy shall enter also, or conquer, the glorious land, America, the United States. When does the papacy conquer the USA? When our nation shall so abjure the principles of its government as to enact a Sunday law, Protestantism will in this act join hands with popery. And brethren, this ties in exactly with Revelation chapter 13. Individual homage. But when Sunday observance shall be enforced by law, and the world shall be enlightened concerning the obligation of the true Sabbath, then whoever shall transgress the command of God to obey a precept which has no higher authority than that of Rome, will thereby honour popery above God. He is paying homage to Rome and to the power which enforces the institution ordained by Rome. He is worshipping the beast and his image. As men then reject the institution which God has declared to be the sign of his authority and honour in its stead, and which Rome has chosen as the token of her supremacy, they will thereby accept the sign of allegiance to Rome, the mark of the beast. Great Controversy, page 449. Homage, what does that mean? It's the submission, loyalty and service which a tenant promised his lord or superior. It has been shown that the United States is the power represented by the beast with lamb-like horns, and that this prophecy will be fulfilled when the United States shall enforce Sunday observance, which Rome claims as a special acknowledgement of her supremacy. But in this homage to the papacy, the United States will not be alone. The influence of Rome in the countries that once acknowledged her dominion is still far from being destroyed, and prophecy foretells a restoration of her power. Daniel 11:41. The papacy he shall conquer, have power over, or enter also into the USA, the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown. But these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon.